The Vietnam War left an indelible mark on Indochina and the world. After the Cataclysm, Postwar Indochina and the Reconstruction of Imperial Ideology, co-authored by Noam Chomsky and Edward S. Herman, delves into the aftermath of this tumultuous period. This book examines how imperial ideology, propagated through media and political discourse, shaped the narrative of post-war Indochina. Chomsky and Herman, renowned scholars of media and politics, offer a critical lens through which to understand the forces that shape the region's destiny. They argue that the dominant narrative often obscured the realities on the ground, serving to justify continued Western intervention in the region. This essay will explore the key arguments and themes presented in After the Cataclysm. It will delve into the author's use of the propaganda model to analyze media coverage of post-war Indochina. Furthermore, it will examine the concept of imperial ideology and its role in shaping public perception and justifying foreign interventions. By understanding the mechanisms through which narratives are constructed and disseminated, we can better critically engage with information and challenge dominant ideologies. After the Cataclysm provides a framework for understanding not only the history of post-war Indochina, but also the enduring power of imperial ideology in shaping global politics. The Vietnam War cast a long shadow over Indochina. The region was devastated by years of conflict, leaving behind a legacy of physical destruction, political instability, and social fragmentation. Chomsky and Herman argue that the post-war period was marked by a continuation of imperial power dynamics, albeit in a more subtle form. The United States, despite its military withdrawal from Vietnam, maintained a keen interest in the region. Its foreign policy objectives focused on containing the spread of communism and preserving its strategic interests in Southeast Asia. This involves supporting anti-communist regimes, even those with questionable human rights records. Meanwhile, the media played a crucial role in shaping public perception of post-war Indochina. Chomsky and Herman contend that media coverage often reflected the biases of powerful interests, framing events in ways that aligned with US foreign policy goals. The post-war period in Indochina was a complex and tumultuous time. Understanding the historical context is essential for grasping the arguments presented in After the Cataclysm. The authors provide a critical analysis of this period, shedding light on the enduring legacies of colonialism, war, and imperial ideology. Central to Chomsky and Herman's analysis is the propaganda model, a framework for understanding how media systems function in capitalist democracies. This model posits that media outlets, despite their claims of objectivity, often serve the interests of powerful elites. The propaganda model identifies 5 filters that shape news coverage: ownership, advertising, sourcing, flak, and anti-communist ideology. These filters act as a system of control, limiting the range of perspectives and narratives that reach the public. Ownership refers to the fact that most major media outlets are owned by large corporations with their own agendas. Advertising revenue often dictates content, as media outlets are reluctant to alienate potential advertisers. Sourcing refers to the reliance of journalists on official sources, such as government officials and corporate spokespeople. Flak refers to the negative responses, such as lawsuits and boycotts, that media outlets may face for challenging powerful interests. Finally, anti-communist ideology, particularly during the Cold War, served as a powerful filter, shaping coverage of countries and movements perceived as communist threats. Applying the propaganda model to post-war Indochina, Chomsky and Herman argue that media coverage often served to manufacture consent for US foreign policy objectives. They contend that the media consistently downplayed or ignored atrocities committed by US-backed regimes while exaggerating the threat posed by communist forces. For example, the authors cite the media's muted response to the Khmer Rouge's genocide in Cambodia. They argue that the US government, seeking to justify its support for the Khmer Rouge's overthrow of the Vietnamese-backed government, downplayed the scale of the atrocities. The media, relying on official sources and wary of challenging the dominant narrative, largely echoed the government's line. This resulted in a distorted understanding of the situation in Cambodia and the role of US foreign policy in the region. Chomsky and Herman's analysis highlights the crucial role of media in shaping public perception and manufacturing consent for imperial endeavors. By controlling the flow of information, powerful interests can influence public opinion and justify their actions. Section 5, Case Study, the Vietnam Syndrome and Public Opinion. The Vietnam War had a profound impact on American public opinion, leading to what became known as the Vietnam Syndrome. This syndrome referred to the public's growing skepticism towards US military intervention abroad, particularly in conflicts perceived as unwinnable or morally ambiguous. Chomsky and Herman argue that the US government and media sought to counter the Vietnam Syndrome by reshaping the narrative of the war. They point to the emergence of a narrative that portrayed the US as having been defeated not on the battlefield but on the home front due to a lack of public support and media criticism. This narrative, the authors argue, served to shift blame away from US policymakers and onto the American public and media. It also aimed to create a climate in which future military interventions would be met with less public scrutiny and opposition. The case of the Vietnam Syndrome illustrates how imperial ideology operates not only by shaping perceptions of foreign countries, but also by influencing domestic public opinion and debate. Section 6. Justifying Intervention, the Language of Imperial Power. Chomsky and Herman argue that imperial ideology relies on a specific language and set of narratives to justify foreign interventions. These narratives often portray the intervening power as benevolent and altruistic, acting in the best interests of the people it seeks to control. One common trope is the white man's burden, which casts Western powers as having a moral duty to civilize and uplift less developed nations. Another is the narrative of national security, which frames interventions as necessary to protect the intervening power from external threats. The authors contend that these narratives serve to mask the self-interested motives, often driving foreign interventions, such as access to resources, strategic advantage, and economic gain. By framing interventions in moralistic terms, imperial powers can garner public support and deflect criticism. Understanding the language and narratives of imperial ideology is crucial for critically analyzing foreign policy and media coverage. By recognizing these tropes, we can better discern the underlying motivations and power dynamics at play. Section 7. Lasting Impacts, Echoes of Ideology in Contemporary Politics. The legacies of imperial ideology continue to resonate in contemporary politics. Chomsky and Herman's analysis of post-war Indochina provides a framework for understanding how similar dynamics play out in other contexts. The War on Terror, for example, can be seen as another instance of imperial ideology at work. The framing of the conflict as a battle between good and evil, the demonization of enemies, and the justification of military intervention in the name of national security all echo the patterns identified in After the Cataclysm. The author's work encourages us to critically examine the narratives presented to us by those in power. It reminds us that media coverage, even in seemingly democratic societies, is not immune to manipulation and bias. By understanding the enduring power of imperial ideology, we can better challenge its assumptions and advocate for more just and equitable foreign policies. Section 8. Critical Assessment Strengths and Limitations of the book. After the Cataclysm is a thought-provoking and meticulously researched book that offers a valuable critique of US foreign policy and media coverage. Chomsky and Herman's use of the propaganda model provides a powerful tool for understanding how power operates in the realm of information. However, the book has also faced criticism. Some argue that the author's focus on media bias overlooks other factors that contribute to foreign policy decisions, such as bureaucratic inertia and the influence of interest groups. Others contend that the propaganda model can be overly deterministic, suggesting that media consumers are passive recipients of propaganda rather than active interpreters of information. Despite these criticisms, After the Cataclysm remains an important contribution to the study of media, politics, and imperialism. Its insights into the construction of ideology and the role of media in shaping public perception remain highly relevant today. Section 9 Conclusion, a call for critical engagement. After the Cataclysm, Postwar Indochina and the Construction of Imperial Ideology is a powerful indictment of the forces that shape our understanding of the world. Chomsky and Herman's analysis challenges us to question dominant narratives, to critically engage with media, and to hold those in power accountable. The book's enduring relevance lies in its ability to illuminate the enduring legacies of imperial ideology and its continued influence on contemporary politics. By understanding the mechanisms through which power operates in the realm of information, we can become more informed and engaged citizens. After the Cataclysm is not a comfortable read, but it is a necessary one. It reminds us that the quest for truth and justice requires constant vigilance and a willingness to challenge the status quo. In an era of information overload and media manipulation, the lessons of this book are more important than ever.